Good evening, I am Ansman Esonyasi, and this is QTV News coming to you live from our studios on Kairaba Avenue. Thanks for joining us. Here are the main news headlines. At a colorful ceremony which even the rain could not dampen, President Barrow today laid the foundation stone for a $100 million five-star hotel, part of the OIC-linked projects. The genocide case against Myanmar filed by the Gambia at the International Court of Justice sees the ICJ rule against Myanmar's preliminary objections to Gambia's legal application. And the National Executive Committee of National Associations of Gambian Nurses and Midwives held their Congress for their incoming executives and discussed the way forward. And in sports news, GFF presidential aspirant Sadibou Kamaso officially launched his campaign as he prepares to contest against his former boss, the incumbent Lamin Kababajo, in next month's elections. Well, those were our main headlines, and now we take a look at the news in detail. Now, at a colorful ceremony which even the rain could not dampen, President Adama Barrow today laid the foundation stone for a $100 million five-star hotel, part of the OIC-linked projects. Here is a brief excerpt.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite you to join me to formally lay the foundation stone for the five-star Radisson Blu Hotel Banjul. I thank you.
Well, more of that to come in our subsequent newscast. Now, the genocide case against Myanmar filed by the Gambia at the International Court of Justice is registering some progress. On Friday, in a unanimous vote, the ICJ ruled against Myanmar's preliminary objections to Gambia's legal application. Among the objections by the Southeast Asian country was to question the court's jurisdiction to hear the case and its admissibility. Lamin Choi has been reviewing the judgment, and here's the latest.
The International Court of Justice ruling on Friday is seen as another important milestone in delivering justice for the Rohingya population of Myanmar, who are alleged victims of genocide by their own military. Friday's ruling by the International Court of Justice marks the second time it has delivered a ruling in Gambia's favor. The first being in 2020, when the court issued a provisional measures order in favor of Gambia's request from Myanmar to prevent all genocidal acts against the Rohingya and to take steps to preserve evidence related to the case. The Rohingya ethnic group are a mainly Muslim minority in Myanmar, previously known as Burma. And before the alleged Rohingya genocide in 2017, an estimated 1.4 million lived in Rakhine State. Following the alleged genocide, over 740,000 fled to neighboring Bangladesh. The latest development is the court's judgment on Friday, which determined 4 objections to the Gambia's application, which was considered by the court in a hearing in February this year, after they were filed on January 20th, 2021. Let's look at what the objections entail. Firstly, Myanmar submitted that the application by the Gambia is inadmissible, arguing that the Gambia lacks the standing to bring the case before the court because the Gambia filed it, quote-unquote, as a proxy for a regional body. In this case, the Organization for Islamic Cooperation, noting that ICJ was established to preside over disputes between states and not a state and an organization. Here is the court's judgment in this objection.
In the present case, the court sees no reason why it should look beyond the fact that the Gambia has issued proceedings against Myanmar in its own name. The court is therefore satisfied that the applicant in this case is the Gambia. In light of the foregoing, the first preliminary objection raised by Myanmar, insofar as it concerns the jurisdiction of the court, must be rejected.
Secondly, Myanmar objected on the basis that there was no dispute between the Gambia and Myanmar on the interpretation, application, or fulfillment of the Genocide Convention as required by Article 9 of the Convention. This objection was unanimously rejected.
The court concludes that a dispute relating to the interpretation, application, and fulfillment of the Genocide Convention existed between the parties at the time of the filing of the application by the Gambia on 11 November 2019. The fourth preliminary objection of Myanmar must therefore be rejected.
Myanmar's third objection had submitted that the court lacks jurisdiction or that the Gambia's application is inadmissible because the Gambia cannot validly lodge proceedings with or in legal terms seize the court under the Genocide Convention. In a unanimous vote, this objection is rejected.
Given that Article 8 does not pertain to the seizing of the court, Myanmar's reservation to that provision is irrelevant for purposes of determining whether the court is properly seized of the case before it. Consequently, it is not necessary for the court to examine the content of Myanmar's reservation to Article 8. The court therefore concludes that Myanmar's third preliminary objection must be rejected.
Finally, Myanmar had argued that the Gambia's application is inadmissible before the court, submitting that the country is not affected by the alleged crime and lacks the right to bring the case before the court. In relation to this objection, Myanmar states that only quote-unquote adversely affected countries have the right to present a claim before the court. 15 of the judges, except one, rejected this objection.
The Genocide Convention does not attach additional conditions to the invocation of responsibility or admissibility of the claims submitted to the court. The use of the expression, the contracting parties, in Article 9 is explained by the fact that the court's jurisdiction under Article 9 requires the existence of a dispute between two or more contracting parties. For this reason, the court concludes that the Gambia, as a state party to the Genocide Convention, has standing to invoke the responsibility of Myanmar for the alleged breaches of its obligations under Articles 1, 3, 4, and 5 of the Convention.
The Gambia's Minister of Justice, together with his team of lawyers for this hugely significant case, celebrate and describe the judgment as part of the steps towards delivering justice, towards holding Myanmar to account for its genocide against the Rohingya population, over 700,000 of whom are in refugee camp in Bangladesh. Mohamed Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Now, the National Executive Committee of National Association of Gambian Nurses and Midwives held their Congress for their incoming executives and discussed the way forward for the progress of its members and the association. Ajibuntu Drame has more.
About 200 members of the association converged for this extraordinary Congress. Nurses and midwives play a key role in the health sector. With this, discussing the way forward for the progress of their profession and the health sector are integral. An independent electoral commission came to observe and ensure a free, fair election and process. Basiru Drame, an executive member of the National Executive Committee of National Association of Gambian Nurses and Midwives, thanked veteran nurses for their immeasurable efforts and for their support.
Today's Congress is on conclusion of the journey that we began in 2019. It has not been an easy one for our team. We have quarreled and fought on many occasions, but at the end, we have put our differences aside and agree on common good for the best interest of the association. We are confident that you will go beyond the bar. Thus, you have to be very strong, engage the general membership, consult the veteran nurses, and of course the outgoing executive for their guidance to break the barriers.
Horeja Sen, chief matron at the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital and a member of the association, says that expectations are high for the coming executive, particularly in addressing the welfare of nurses and enhancing services delivery of the health sector.
We are expecting for them to ensure that we have that good collaboration with the government and other stakeholders that will make sure that our country, the healthcare system of this country is moved forward. And I know that is one of the agendas of the country, the President and the Minister of Health. So we hope that will be something that's going to be very important in terms of care that we deliver to our populace.
Dr. Babukar Cham, who was elected unopposed as the incoming Nagam president, explains that part of his manifesto is rebranding and image building to restore the integrity and respect of nurses. He added that he will also push for nurses to be ensured, promote research and education. A topic on changing the working pattern of nurses will be debated. Dr. Cham shares his thoughts on the topic.
Personally, I am not going to support it because we don't have the capacity yet. Our manpower is very low. We have 1.4 health personnel to 10,000 population. So obviously, if you're doing that, that means you're having less nurses working during the week, and then that will create more problem. At the moment, you go to a hospital, one nurse or two nurses are taking care of 20 people admitted, and then that's the dependency is very high. So, and before, it used to be like that. But if you have changed and then we want to go back to that, definitely I think we need to look at it. The only way, if there is evidence-based and then there is research, then we will, if the research favors it, then we can support it.
Dr. Cham urges every nurse to support the new executive, as it will be working in for their profession, the progress of the association, and in the interest of all who access health services. Ajibintu Drame, QTV News.
We will now go for a commercial break, but the news continues when we return.
It's back again with its easy-to-use, secure and convenient mobile app that allows you to carry out all your transactions. No matter where you are or what time it is, you can always access your funds. With the new Q Money app, you can cash in and out, buy credit, buy Q Power, shop, make payments, and so much more. You can also send Q Money, pay bills, receive international remittances, and transfer cash to others. Just download the app from your Play Store or App Store and get started. For more information, call customer care on 133. Q Money, Sinu Calpe. We innovate, others follow.
As the fastest growing GSM company in the Gambia, QCell has the widest 4G plus coverage in the country, 3 times faster internet speed than our competitors. So switch now and dial *335# and enjoy what true 4G feels like. QCell, the Gambia's trusted network.
Welcome back from the commercial break. We reminded you following QTV News, and we're broadcasting live from our studios on Caraba Avenue. Now, to follow up on the anti-corruption bill presented to Parliament in 2019, a multi-stakeholder engagement on the bill was organized by Gambia Participates. As Jennifer Sonko reports, the engagement was attended by parliamentarians, civil society organizations, and the media.
Multi-stakeholders engagement on the anti-corruption bill follows up a previous engagement in 2020 with National Assembly members, CSOs and legal practitioners, where recommendations were given on the draft bill. If implemented and passed, it is expected the anti-corruption bill will limit and or provide sanctions for corrupt practices in the Gambia. The anti-corruption bill, once passed into law, will be implemented and enforced by an anti-corruption commission. The commission will investigate and prosecute criminal offences and push for preventive measures. There has been criticism that, even though significant steps have been made in relation to the bill, progress is still slow in passing it into law. The Deputy Clerk of the National Assembly, Khalifa Mbai, updated the meeting on the status of the anti-corruption bill in Parliament. He highlighted that there are stages that all bills without exception must go through. Mr. Mbai wanted to clarify that the National Assembly cannot be blamed for the current state of the bill.
So after the reporting stage, the next stage was supposed to be the consideration stage. I may say fortunately or unfortunately, per se, the reporting stage couldn't take place. So this is where this anti-corruption bill is at the moment. But Parliament may not be blamed entirely on this. We may all be aware of what happened. The consideration stage was scheduled on a particular date. But unfortunately, as I said earlier, it was the minister's responsibility to come and defend the bill in Parliament, in all states. So the particular day when this consideration stage was scheduled, the Attorney General, which was the minister in charge of the bill, failed to attend Parliament. Yes, you can argue there was miscommunication here and there, but not on our part. From their end, there was breakdown come internally at them. So the minister was out of the jurisdiction, so he couldn't attend that particular sitting there. So Parliament was very mad about the action of or the conduct of the minister. So the reporting stage was, of course, taken out of the agenda of the Assembly.
The discussion shifted to the powers of the Attorney General and the Anti-Corruption Commission. The draft bill says that for the Commission to prosecute, the Attorney General shall give approval. However, the recommendation is that this be amended to may give the Commissioner's power to prosecute with or without the approval of the AG. Amadou Gay, an international development specialist, says conversations around such a change should be realistic considering current realities.
Versus the powers of the AG. There will be issues in this because, as we discussed at that workshop, the Constitution hasn't changed yet. The current Constitution empowers the AG, not the Commission. I'm saying this so that we don't try to force things that are not practical. It wouldn't be possible. So it's the AG now who holds the overall power on these cases of prosecution, investigations, etc. So we're trying to form this commission and make it very independent so it can do its job independent from the executive. That's what we want, and that is what is good practice all over the world on anti-corruption laws. But in the Gambia's case now, I think that will be very, very, very complex.
John Charles Jai, the chairman of Tango, highlighted the need to ensure that commissioners of the anti-corruption have security of tenure. The recommendation is that the president's appointment of commissioners in consultation with the public service, as suggested in the draft, is not good practice.
Even what the other danger is, when you leave and another party takes over, are they going to terminate the commissioners and bring their own people? And then we go back to this vicious cycle. So maybe for the parliamentarians here, my appeal and our appeal from civil society is, please, whatever the case is, just try to ensure that there is security of tenure for the commissioners so that they can do their work without fear or favor. Because once they start to be compromised and feel obligated to a particular individual or a particular political party, then the Anti-Corruption Bill and the Anti-Corruption Act will be as good as dead.
Many current parliamentarians use the Anti-Corruption Bill as an election campaign tool, strongly arguing that once voted in, they will push for the immediate passing of the Anti-Corruption Bill to combat corruption. Honorable Suleiman Jame is one of the National Assembly members who vowed to push for the bill to be passed into an act.
As a new member of parliament, and during my campaign period, most of the stakeholders that I was going to, especially my electorates, they were bringing this concern. And I think in terms of development as a country, if we really want to develop, corruption has to be eliminated. Even though if we cannot eliminate it, but it has to be minimized because corruption deters our development.
There is evidence that anti-corruption commissions work, as Sierra Leone's Anti-Corruption Commission won over 90% of its cases and recovered over $2.8 million from corrupt officials. Sierra Leone's Anti-Corruption Commission is led by one commissioner, Francis Ben Kaifala. Reporting for QTV News, I am Jenna Rosonko.
And now on to sports news in a moment. GFA presidential aspirant Sadibu Kamaso officially launched his campaign as he prepares to contest against his former boss, the incumbent Lamin Kababajo, in next month's elections. More in this report.
A household name in the Gambia, Sadibu Kamaso has been an executive member of the Gambia Football Federation for many years, until recently when he resigned and expressed an interest to contest next month's elections. Once a trusted member of the Bajo-led administration, the respected football administrator last week appeared on QTV's Current Affairs Heu Heu program, accusing the current executive of corruption and a lack of ideas. Launching his campaign, Kamaso says a win for his team in the August 27th election is inevitable, and stressing his campaign mantra, he says they are here to restore confidence.
Youths have gone through the back way, and 6,000 to 7,000 of those perish. Over 4,000 of them have been returned. And this has been facilitated by the IOM. Do you want to know why? Because they've lost faith. The Gambia Football Federation leadership could have measured up to the demands of these youths who believe their lives could have been changed if they play football and become the next Omar Kolis, the next Steve Tarawales, the next Musa Barros, so they can change the lives.
His team includes respected female football administrators Choro Mbenga Nyasi, Adama Jaju, Ami Jangjai, and former Minister of Youth and Sports Mas Axigai, Bori Dabo, former chairman of the National Sports Council, and respected Police Regional Commissioner for NBR and Sumana Kinte. However, one inclusion that got everyone talking and probably shows how diverse the composition of his team Restore Confidence executive is that of Gambian football legend and former captain of the national team Ibu Silla. Chora Menga Nyasi, Sadibu's chosen second vice president, Aliu Bey, president of Walidan Football Club, and Bori Dabo, ex-chairman of the National Sports Council, all called on the stakeholders to do the needful and rescue Gambian football by voting for Kamaso.
There is nothing like a bank hop in our account when it's come to hope to restore our football. I thank you all for your attention and call on every loving Gambia to rally behind the team Restore. Let's restore the lost confidence in our football.
Everyone is here. This shows that the people that put in hard work, the people that put in effort, the people that put in their own resources, their own money, when football was in nothing. When I remember you make a changes, you have to wait and change your shoes and give it to someone else. A lot of people running football, we are not around.
The administrators themselves have lost confidence in our sports administration. Because each time you raise your voice, somebody is there to make you silent. Because he will not want you to say what everybody needs to know. That is to condone corruption, and that is to condone mismanagement of our football funds. Team Restore Confidence have come to restore the lost confidence from Koina to Kato.
In his official campaign launch statement, Kamaso said amongst his top priorities is to restore stakeholders' confidence in the federation, rebrand the GFF, create a players' trust fund, and improve the country's football infrastructure. Ansmane Sonyasi for KTV News.
Well, that brings us to the end of this edition of the news, but before we take a leave of you, here's a recap for main headlines. At a colorful ceremony, which even the rain could not dampen, President Barrow today laid the foundation stone for a $100 million five-star hotel, part of the OIC-linked projects. The genocide case against Myanmar filed by the Gambia at the International Court of Justice sees the ICJ rule against Myanmar's preliminary objection to Gambia's legal application. The National Executive Committee of National Association of Gambian Nurses and Midwives held their Congress for their incoming executives and discussed the way forward. And in sports news, GFF presidential aspirant Sadibu Kamaso officially launched his campaign as he prepares to contest against his former boss, the incumbent Lamin Kababajo, in next month's elections. That's it for this edition. Do join Momodu Mboj and Ade Darami tomorrow at 8 p.m. for a review of the week's top stories. Thanks for watching.